Hi, I'm Connie Cleveland. This is part 2 of our discussion about how we can make our dogs want to perform. Obedience has an enormous variety of skills that involve staying, coming, heeling, retrieving, and jumping. Very few dogs like all of the obedience exercises, but our goal is to teach our dogs to enjoy and want to perform the entire obedience routine. In part 1 of the series, I suggested that 1, you needed a powerful reward. You need something that your dog enjoys, whether it be food, a toy, or a game like tug of war. Number 2, you need to pair that reward with a reward marker, more technically referred to as a conditioned secondary reinforcer. Number 3, we need to connect the reward marker with behaviors, specifically those that your dog does not find naturally enjoyable. Because science has shown that your dog will start to enjoy the activities that predict reward. All too often I hear obedience participants tell me that their dog performs well when they have food or they have a toy, but he fails to perform if the handler does not have those objects on his body. If you've heard yourself say that very thing, I need to help you understand that your dog will start to enjoy an activity when it is paired with a reward marker. Not long ago, I was helping an obedience enthusiast condition his dog to a reward marker. We were doing it by sending the dog to her bed, and as soon as her last foot got on the bed, we used his reward marker and threw the ball. Soon, the dog was moving faster toward the bed and seemed to be enjoying the game. But of greater interest to me was that on one repetition, after she had retrieved the ball, she took the ball back to the bed. Now, why would a dog who already was in possession of the reward take the reward to the bed, unless going to the bed had started to become enjoyable? So how does a reward marker work? Well, number 1, when the untrained dog receives a reward, a dopamine flood occurs in the pleasure and memory centers of the brain. Number 2, once conditioned to a reward marker, the dopamine flood occurs when the animal hears the marker before he receives the reward. And number 3, finally, the reward marker connects the reward with whatever the dog is doing when he hears the marker. Connected this way often enough, any behavior becomes rewarding. So why do we use a reward marker? Because if we consistently connect behavior to reward with markers, the behavior becomes rewarding. What behavior do you need your dog to enjoy? I started exploring the use of a reward marker by teaching my dogs to go to their bed. As you watch both Isaac and Nate learn to run for their bed, it's hard to deny that they are enjoying this activity. Yes. I begin by sending my puppy to the bed and saying yes, it's my verbal conditioned reinforcer, as soon as his 4th foot hits the bed. I say place as soon as his foot hits the bed, yes, and I deliver the treat. As you watch me do this with my older Labrador, Nate, every time I use the word yes, his conditioned reinforcer, I deliver the treat. Yes. What is making running to the bed enjoyable? Remember, the reward marker connects the reward with whatever the dog is doing when he hears the marker. Connected this way often enough, the behavior becomes rewarding. The first few times that I taught dogs to do this, it was almost frustrating to me because after all, there is no 30-point run to your bed exercise. As I saw how much my dogs were enjoying this silly trick, I started thinking, what is it that I need my dogs to enjoy in the sport of obedience? There is much about obedience that is unnatural, but the most important thing that I use my reward marker for is getting into heel position. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times your dog has to get into heel position when you're in the ring? Just consider the open class. Your dog has to come in and line up for the heeling, then he has to line up for the figure eight, then he has to line up for the command discrimination, again for the drop on recall, then he has to get into heel position on the finish, the flat retrieve, the finish, the high jump, the finish, the broad jump, the finish, and one more time he has to line up in order to do the stand, stay, go get your leash. 12 times in the open class, your dog has to get into heel position. If you could cause a dopamine release in the pleasure and memory centers of his brain every time you asked him to get into heel position, can you imagine how much more fun performing in the open ring will become? Last week, I ended part one with 2 questions. The first was, what behaviors do you need to pair with a reward marker? You can pair your reward marker with many behaviors, but the single most important behavior is getting into and maintaining heel position. Using a reward marker caused Nate to enjoy running to his bed. I'm looking for the same result as he learns to find heel position. I begin with him on a bed and call him into heel position from behind me. Once Nate will come into heel position from behind me, I turn 90 degrees to the bed. When I start this, I call my dogs off a bed because it creates more momentum than calling them out of a sit-stay. When they understand and start enjoying the game, then I start doing the same from a sit-stay. First, he comes up from behind me. Sometimes there's a treat in my hand, sometimes I'm just pointing to heel position. I'm consistent. Every time I mark it, he earns a treat. I'm going to try to do this from an assortment of angles. I want him to get good at coming into heel position and then getting straight beside me. There is more information about teaching your dog to find heel in the digital guide, Tricks That Transition to Obedience Exercises. Getting good at this game translates into a dog who enjoys finishes, pivots, the moving stand, and lining up for each exercise. If you only use your reward marker to find heel, you will see a tremendous improvement in your dog's attitude. However, I think there are other opportunities for you to effectively use a reward marker as well. The next most unnatural thing that we ask a dog to do is front. Consider this video. Hi, this is Connie Cleveland demonstrating for you that I actually use 2 markers when I'm working on fronts. No, the word is a no reward marker. It means you're not going to get rewarded for that. And when I say yes, it means right there you earned the treat. Also notice that when I am fixing the front, I point to front. I'm trying to communicate to the dog, hey, your head is in the right place. It's your rear end that I want to see you move. Sometimes I'll practice fronts just by throwing a treat on the ground and then let my dogs come in and earn another reward with the front. However, if you're uncomfortable throwing treats on the ground, then try just circling a cone. It's equally effective and you can get a lot of front practice that way. Now, I'm going to do this one more time at the end of a recall. The argument I get from people is that if I am willing to reward him on a second attempt, aren't I teaching him that he has 2 tries to get it straight? I don't think so. I think what Nate's learning is it matters where I sit, and she only rewards it when I'm in the right location. Before I go on, I want to answer the second question that I left you with in part 1. Does it matter where you deliver the reward? I'm going to offer a 2-part answer to that question. First, when I'm trying to get the dog excited about the reward marker, I make receiving the reward as exciting as possible. I will throw the toy or throw the treat in order to get the dog completely engaged in receiving reward. Now, a reward marker is a terminating signal, and that means the dog is done performing when the reward marker occurs. However, if a dopamine flood is occurring when he hears the reward marker, and I deliver the reward in that position, that certainly can increase the significance of the position that he's in when he receives reward. Be flexible about where you deliver reward. So what other behaviors do I reinforce with a reward marker? The next least motivating exercise for most of our dogs are the position changes. I want you to watch a piece of a webinar that I did for the Obedience Road members about teaching position changes and how I use my reward marker to teach dogs to love this exercise.
I'm working on going from a stand to a down. Yes. Now, I'm trying to say yes at the moment that his elbows hit the ground. Stand up. If I can do the timing of that, then he's going to start to say, wow, I want to get my elbows on the ground faster, because that's when I cause reward to happen. Yes. Okay, so I want to say yes, then throw the treat. I want to tell you a little game. I learned this actually from my husband, who went to a chicken training camp. The chickens were on a banquet table, evidently, and they had taught the chickens to peck a dot. And now the chickens, imagine the banquet table coming out from the wall. The chickens were on the end of the banquet table, and the game was that you wanted your chicken to turn around and go all the way to the wall and peck the dot. And they were trying to learn the timing of their reward markers. Lie down. Chickens are really fast, evidently. I don't know, I've never trained a chicken. I'm just telling you the story he told me. So if you click too soon and the chicken has not actually pecked the dot, the chicken says, well, I didn't need to peck the dot. All I had to do is run to the end of the table. If the chicken pecks the dot and turns around and you click too late, the chicken says, well, I didn't need to peck the dot. I just needed to go to the end of the table and turn around. That's what caused the click to happen. So it was about exactly what are we trying to click. I want to catch it when the chicken pecks the dot. But then they added something else to it. He said we had a laser light. That was the cue for the chicken to go peck the dot. So we're standing at the end of the table, and when we turn the laser light on, that meant go peck the dot. And the chicken had to wait 10 seconds for the laser light to come on. Now, when he's telling me this story, I'm thinking, okay, I do not have a dog that would wait 10 seconds for me to give him a signal. They would anticipate it. And I said, well, what do you do when a chicken anticipates? And he said, well, you just kind of round up your chicken. I said, okay, so what I'm picturing is that the chicken's on the table and he runs down and he pecks the dot and nothing happens because he anticipated, and he's mad because you're not clicking, and he jumps off the table and he's running around the room, walk, 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 walk. He said, yeah, you're pretty much describing exactly what was happening. And he said, and we just rounded up our chicken. And I thought, okay, well, if they just rounded up their chicken, then I need to be absolutely unexcited about anticipation. So it changed how I worked on my position changes, especially the stand to down and the down to sit. So stand. So watch, because I'm going to stare at Nate, okay? And I'm not moving. He's waiting for the laser light. Not really, he's waiting for my hand to move, right? So let's just wait. Yes. Okay, now the interesting thing that I found out was they don't get distracted. They don't start looking around. They get more intense. Because I'm using that reward marker and I started to lengthen the time, oh, sure, at the beginning, he was anticipating all over the place. If he just went down, I said, no, stand up. And I just very slowly walked in and stood him back up. And watch what happens as I wait. And I'll see if I can count to 10. Yes. Okay. That game made all the difference on my signals. The dog started to love it. And if you watch that closely, rewind, you're going to watch his mouth. He goes, and he actually starts to hold his breath and stare at me. And I found, you know what? I can do it 10 seconds, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 8 seconds. And his response is getting more and more intense and faster. If I mark the moment his elbows hit the ground, and if I don't make a big deal about anticipation. Now, I can play the same game down on the down to sit. And I'm staring at him and I'm not going to move. Yes. And I'm trying to say yes at the third step. That's what I call begging him into the starting position. I did not make a big deal about it. I just pointed to the ground, just please get down so we can play the game. If Nate could talk, I'd want him to say to you right now, I'm working on learning to go from a down to a sit. If you start doing this, down, sit, the dog says, I have no idea what we're working on. Okay, let's try again. Lie down. Okay, just begging him down. Ready? Yes. Okay.
Could you use reward markers to increase your dog's enthusiasm about other obedience exercises? Absolutely. What exercise are you struggling with? A reward marker connects the reward with whatever the dog is doing when he hears the marker. Connected this way often enough, any behavior can and will become rewarding. What makes a dog want to perform? This is the first piece of the puzzle. However, I can't really end here. We need to discuss how to go from having a dog who enjoys finding heel position, enjoys finding front, enjoys position changes, to a dog that enjoys the entire performance. Watch your inbox for part 3 of this series, and I'll give you some information about that next step. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to send them to me. I'll look forward to hearing from you.